Hi, I'm Nathan Cole. Today we're talking all about pizzicato, everything from a solo repertoire pizzicato to orchestral, chamber, and even, even a little something like But here on this channel we've got a no stairway rule, just like in Wayne's World. So there is something about that sound though, that sort of guitar style. If you ever took Suzuki, if you've ever taught Suzuki, you know that little kids like to pluck like that all the time. It's kind of that rest position loophole, right? You want the kids to stop playing, so you tell them go to rest position, but they can still. It's funny how we learn to Pizz that way, and then we kind of abandon it as we get older, but it's a good idea if you want the best kind of pizzicato sound. We're going to get into how to do that up here too. Put it up, we start clawing at it with eagle talons. But think back to this style. What's good about it is I'm using my thumb, a nice fleshy appendage there. Got a good contact point. Yes, even pizzicato has contact point considerations. And I'm plucking more horizontally rather than pulling at it vertically like we sometimes do up here. So the basic sound for the basic pizzicato. By the way, I've got my bow. I'm not going to be using it today except as a prop, right? Usually we have the bow in our hand when we pizzicato, unfortunately. But for that basic sound, what we're going to do is to first brace our bow thumb on the corner of the fingerboard here. There are exceptions, we'll get to that. But that's a great place from which to get rid of the motion of the hand. Kind of eliminate some variables, right? And from there, we're going to treat this as if we've got this kind of bow and arrow. I don't know why it slipped off my hand there. But when you're shooting an arrow with a bow, you draw the string back, right? And then you release the tension, and that's what lets the arrow fly. And we're going to do the same thing. With that thumb braced on the corner of the fingerboard there, I'm going to draw the string to the side there. And once it's drawn, then I can release it. So just like the arrow flies when you release the string, the sound comes out when you release. That's really worth remembering. It's one of the key things about pizzicato. A lot of times we think of pizzicato as this, but in fact the only thing that matters is that release. So what I would encourage you to do, and to do it on all four strings to feel the different tensions, is to hang out at that spot after you've drawn the string. Here I'm on the G string now. You've drawn the string and you're feeling how it wants to slip off the finger. You're going to get it as close as it can to sliding off and then let it. That's how you're going to get the purest pizzicato sound. So it's a horizontal release rather than a vertical one. Another thing that's going to give you that best sort of basic pizzicato sound is your contact point. So take a look with me at the violin string, right? We know, or many of you will know already, that if you divide the string in half, the halfway point is going to be that harmonic that's exactly one octave above the string. That is the place in the string with the least resistance, right? You can test that yourself. You can pull on different parts of the string. The closer you get to the nut down here or to the bridge up here, the harder it is to pull on. But if you're pulling at the string right on that harmonic spot, that's where it's going to be the loosest, the easiest to pull. So a basic idea is that whatever note I'm going to play, let's say I'm playing an open string, the easiest place to pull the string would be right here down in the middle. Now most of the time when we're playing pizzicato, we're plucking way up here. We'll get to why that is. But try it a couple times, plucking an open string, find that harmonic, and put your finger right there to pluck the string. See how pure that sound is, how easily you're able to draw the string and to let it go. And that's going to hold true no matter what note you're playing. Let's say that I'm playing now a 3 on the D. That would be a G. Well, where is the spot in the string that's an octave above that? How can I divide that shorter string in half? I'm going to mark that spot with my eyeball. Actually, I'm going to put my finger on it. Okay, right there, I've divided that shorter string in half. So if I want to pluck that third finger on the D, here would be the spot. It's so pure and it rings. Now, why don't we just pluck in that spot all the time? It's because not only is the string easier to pull there, but it's going to snap back there more too. So if I try to do a really loud pizzicato here in that spot, I may be able to manage it, but it may often want to snap back and hit the fingerboard. It may want to hit an adjacent string. So I'm going to get, just as I would use the bow a little closer to the bridge for the most part, I'm going to Pizz a little closer to the bridge too. So not right in that harmonic spot, but a little closer to the bridge. There's more resistance, less risk of snapback. But still, when you see me playing pizzicato, I'll often be plucking further from the bridge than some of my colleagues. So that is something that you can look at, but everyone should test out the sound, at least, that you get from dividing that string in half. All right. We've talked about the horizontal release versus the vertical. Bartók pizzicato is the one that you get if your release is totally vertical, right? That's when the string snaps back onto the fingerboard. And if you really want, sometimes we get that in orchestral writing, and folks will only go kind of halfway. I say if you're going to do it, go all the way. Really get your finger under that string, pull it straight up, let it snap straight back down onto the fingerboard. If you don't want the Bartók Pizz, don't do that. Don't get your finger under the string. Again, we're going to pull it to the side and release it. That means that if we're on the E string, because of the curve of the bridge, right, we won't even necessarily be pulling to the side. We may even be pulling a little bit down to follow that curve of the bridge. If you pull straight to the side on the E string, you may start to get the hint of Bartók Pizz, and you may even see some rosin dust fly into your face, as I just did. If you are doing that on the E string, by the way, be sure to brace that thumb on the corner of the fingerboard. If you don't, and you start pitzing down, many a violin has had its varnish nicked off bit by bit there. I've been guilty of that lazy orchestral playing. All right. Because we're pulling to the side and not up, our left-hand fingers have to be pretty firm to stop the string and to avoid getting pulled to the side along with the rest of the string, right? Especially if I'm on the G string and I don't have my fingers down all the way, they may get nudged one way or another. So I've got to keep them really firm, firmer than I might just for bowed playing. They're really going to be stopping the string. Sometimes I even may push my fingers a little bit to the left to counteract the pulling to the right from the right hand. So I'm pushing to the left to resist. All right. We know that because of the curve of the bridge, that angle is going to change from string to string. I repeat that because it's something that we don't always think about, but it becomes essential to get the purest pizzicato sound. All right, let's put this into practice with an example, surprisingly, from the solo repertoire, or concerto repertoire. In Prokofiev's first concerto, there's a really cool place in the middle of the first movement where the soloist has a full pizzicato line. And that's a great way to practice pitzing on all four strings while holding the bow. Because I have time, you'll see that I'm holding the bow with the fist basically to free up my first finger. We'll talk about times you don't have the opportunity to do that. But this is that basic sound. You'll see me change the contact point as the string gets shorter. Rest. And that last one is an example of an accent. I did not have my thumb braced on the corner for this solo repertoire. You'll see me do it more in the orchestral. So I've really got to be sure that for that last one especially, I don't put my fingernail straight down into the varnish. All right. For that passage, I was able to switch my bow hold to be a fist. If there's a passage that where I don't have time to make that switch, then I'm going to have to hold the bow in the hand. And so it's worth practicing doing that as well. When you hold the bow in the hand, of course, you don't have the opportunity to brace. All right, so. But otherwise, nothing really changes about that pizzicato motion. I'm feeling the resistance of the string and releasing. Let's look at something from the chamber repertoire, and that would be the Debussy Quartet. If you look in the second movement, that's all about pizzicato for quite a while. And in the first violin part, we've got some fast pitzing. I say that it's fast enough. I'm no longer comfortable bracing with the thumb on the fingerboard here. So I'm going to hold the bow like this. It gives me the freest pitzing finger. And I'm just going to quickly get back to the string. The basic idea, even though this is under tempo, now my finger has to be on the string and pulling it before I want the sound, right? Just like the bow needs to be there and on the string if you want a nice colle stroke, if I had to bow this, right? For that reason, if you have such an arco passage, it's really useful to practice pizzicato. This is a tip I got from Simon Fisher, and I'm very grateful for it, because practicing pizzicato lets you know just how the timing should be for your right hand. In this case, it's a Pizz passage anyway. You'll notice that my finger is not going like that to pluck the string. That's because that's unnecessary and wasted motion. I just keep it like that, and I'm moving my hand to find the string to get there early. The dynamic, of course, is controlled by how much my finger resists the string, how much I pull it. And then I would know how to play it off the string with the bow if I want. Now, if you want a slightly sweeter sound, we talked in the beginning about the thumb down here. I've often wished I could just play it down there. Wouldn't project so well, wouldn't look so good maybe. But if you have slightly slower notes that you can play and you want to play them more sweetly, often the second finger, the middle finger, can give you that better sound. It's just because it's fleshier and a little bit longer, and you can see for yourself. You try with the different fingers. Second finger tends to be a little bit softer, so I'll often use that for isolated pizzicato in orchestral passages. If I just have something like that, I'll almost always use the second finger. I'll also use the second finger if I've got double stops or chords to play, because again, it's got more flesh on it, it's a little bit wider, a little bit easier to grab two notes at once. For example, if I look at the first bars of that Debussy quartet, the first violin part, these double stops, if I try to play them with one, generally I'm going to get a lot of open D, not so much of the top note. If I put my second finger more or less flat on the strings like that, I can more easily grab both of them. It's almost like playing a fifth with the left hand. I'm doing that with the right hand. So those are the opening bars of that first violin part. Of course, to do that, you need to be holding the bow like this rather than the normal bow hold. It's pretty inconvenient to try and use the middle finger if you're using the regular bow hold. Another example of some double or even triple stops where the second finger comes in handy is in the Ysaye solo sonata. So if you look at the second sonata, that third movement, the Danse des Ombres, here we've got, of course, even 4-note chords as well. And using the second finger to Pizz is great for that. I'll give the pitch a good grade until the end. Pizzicato, I'll give that a better grade. You notice that I didn't use the second finger for every single note, but for so many of those multi-note chords, especially those arpeggiated ones, the ones marked with a squiggly line near the end of the passage. You can also, well, I should say, that brings up another point about voicing. You can switch your contact point, right? If I'm out here for these rich chords, and then I want to come back in here closer to the bridge for a moving voice. You can differentiate the voices that way. If you want to go even further with different sounds, you can use the thumb, not down here a la guitarra, but up here, once again holding the bow in a fist, but now freeing up the thumb. That bow is going to be pointing straight at you, straight at the camera. And now, that's going to be yet sweeter even than the second finger. That's the most flesh, right? Depends on maybe the season and how dry your skin may be. But a nice other thing that the thumb can do is to control the speed of the roll for chords. When I'm using a finger or a second, I don't want to say I'm locked into one speed, but there's basically one comfortable speed. When you're using the thumb, because you've got a little bit of this pincer action here, much easier to control the speed of the roll. So you can almost make it sound like a different instrument. There are passages in the orchestral repertoire where you really do have to control that, and the thumb is a great thing to use for that. In the Rimsky-Korsakov Capriccio Espagnol, for example, we've got a passage, where is that? After C, perhaps 8 bars, where, let me bow the rhythm once. The rhythm that we have to play is something like that. May even be a little bit faster than that, and so it's difficult, if not impossible. I mean, you can really try to go for it, but so much easier is just to stick the thumb on there like that. So I'm fingering the double stops, the triple stops, I should say. And that's the way to get that rhythm right every time. Now that we've covered using different fingers, different contact points, you can start getting even more creative when you've got more than one voice, right? Because you can choose how to voice chords, and that's what makes the passages, for example, in the Ysaye sonatas even more effective? Do you want the lower voices or the upper voices to predominate? Do you want them to be more equal? One way you can do that is by how you do the pizzicato stroke. If I'm stroking 4 strings and I go diagonally away from me like that, by the time I get over to the E string, I'm going to be kind of falling off that curve of the bridge, that curve of the fingerboard. And so that's going to result in a nice pleasing roll-off. The top voices are going to tend to be a little quieter than the bottom ones. That's often just what you want. So I'm going out away from me. So often we want the bass to come out. We don't want the top note to just pop. Let's say we wanted a more even roll. Well, then I'm going to roll following the curve of the bridge, following the curve of the fingerboard. Now the 4 voices more or less even. So it really depends what you want, and that may change from chord to chord, of course. The thumb is also great at evening things out if you like that. You just hear how that really pops, but all 4 voices can pop. So if I actually go back and play a bit of that one, let me try to emphasize the bass line only at first. Now let's say I wanted more melody. I'm going to start following the curve of the fingerboard. I said melody, I meant the top voice, which may or may not be the melody. You can even do something a little bit crazy. You can use more than 1 finger, right? 3-note chords, I could put down 3 fingers like this, so that there's no roll whatsoever. One interesting piece actually to practice for this, just to see what's possible, is Bach's Chaconne, to play it pizzicato. And you can do things that you never could with the bow. You can do all the strings simultaneously, right? 4 fingers. But it's worth also practicing it with normal pizzicato so that you get a chance to emphasize the voices that you like. Here I want that chaconne, which is in the bass line. So I'm going to roll away from me. I do that because when I bring the bow back, which I'm not going to use in this video, I'm better informed about the possibilities of the voicing. Can we vibrate pizzicato? We can. In fact, a lot of times we should. You probably saw me doing a little bit of that in the Prokofiev and the Ysaye. The keys to vibrating pizzicato are that you've got to let the note sound. You've got to let the string vibrate before you start changing the pitch. Because unlike a bow, where you have a continuous sort of grabbing of the string and making it vibrate, with pizzicato you just have the one shot, right? Once that's released, that's all the vibration you're going to get. So you want to keep the vibrato generally pretty narrow, otherwise it's going to stop the ring. Not a bad idea for bowed playing as well in many passages. So wait for the string to release, and then not too wide a vibrato. Ysaye asks for that, for example, in his 4th sonata, in the 2nd movement, Pizzicato avec vibration. Sorry for butchering pronunciation, but there we really want to hear some of that. Yeah. And so on. Again, just enough that your listener can hear it, but without killing the ring of the string. Start moving on to some specialty pizzicato techniques. These are the ones that I come up with when I'm bored in orchestra, although in this case the first example is from the chamber literature. If you look at that same movement of the Debussy Quartet, the second movement, and go to the second violin part, poor second violinist really has their work cut out for them. Whether they want to put the bow down or not, it's very, very fast, right? While the first violinist, remember, was playing something like that. After, let's see, how many bars are they doing that? It's a lot of bars of pizzicato. So what can make it easier? Now we're back to bracing our thumb on the fingerboard. Alternate fingers in the right hand to pizzicato, right? So, and if you can get the sound the same between those fingers, you don't even have to brace the hand if you get fancy enough. Sorry for notes. You can, why stop at 2 fingers? You can even use more than that if you want to go to Tchaikovsky's 4th Symphony. For this, we'll always put the bow down. Depending on the tempo, our music director, Gustavo Dudamel, likes a quick tempo for this. It might be, right? Who needs all that effort, right? Just do the 2-finger. And then I barely have to move my arm. Extra bonus points. You can, whatever finger you're playing with the left hand, that's the finger you pluck with in the right hand, right? So if I'm going to be in 3rd position to start, for open strings you could use a thumb, but I try not to do that right under the nose of the music director. That can be on your own at home. All the fun you want to have with pizzicato. Couple more special techniques for those really, really quiet ones where you barely need to hear anything. You don't even have to pull the string to the side at all, or very little. You can just get the finger now. It's going to be closer to the bridge where there's a little rosin. Push the finger down. Just basically release it straight up. Now, if you get too much rosin on your finger, or let's say it's a dry season, your finger is too dry and you start hearing a sound that you don't like, sometimes I will admit I'll get just a little oil from the forehead or the side of the nose. I'm sorry if I just need a little smoother pizzicato sound. Now, the harp harmonic. Remember earlier we talked about that halfway point in the string. How the, oh, I used the bow. I guess I used it earlier. That halfway point is a great harmonic. To sound like a harp, put your finger on that harmonic. So you're going to be touching the string lightly. Do a nice strong pizzicato. And then release the left hand finger. Yeah. I once saw Vadim Rapin in the Tchaikovsky Concerto in the Cadenza do something along those lines. This was an extra special harp harmonic because it was left hand only. As long as you're dividing the string in half, it doesn't matter which half of the string you pluck, right? It could be the side closer to the bridge or the side closer to the scroll. So you can pluck with the left hand first finger and then release that. So is what I saw Vadim Rapin do. And we all had our jaws on the floor. Violin nerd stuff. The guitar pits does have its place, even in the orchestral repertoire. If you look at Ravel's Bolero, that's just, it's going to look the right way, it's going to sound the right way. Much easier to execute, better sound. Coming to the end now, if you want to sound like a guitar or a fretted instrument, no worries, you just put your fingernail of the left hand down on the fingerboard, right? If your calluses are strong enough, wow, listen to that ring. Still going. That's the fretted instrument for you. If your calluses are strong enough on the left hand, that might stand in for a fingernail, but fingernail is going to get that fret instrument. If you want to double the effect, use your right hand fingernail, then it sounds like you're picking with a guitar pick, right? And finally, the good old mandolin effect. That's with the thumb down here, and you just back and forth. Although if you have, you're gonna get a better sound for that, honestly, if you've got a pencil handy. Here's a nice red pencil. Make sure you have a bad instrument when you do this, but just use the pencil there, do what it does best. And there you get your best mandolin sound. So, hope this was more than you ever wanted to know about pizzicato. Got another video coming about left-hand pizz, but seriously, pizzicato is an underappreciated and underutilized technique, one that we often take for granted, just say, that's pizzicato, but you can choose the sound that you want and make it really rich and musical. Okay, I'll see you next time.